In today's video, I just wanted to talk about finding your own style in Blender and in 3D and art in general. And we're going to be doing that by just looking at some renders I made recently, getting inspired by Stash. So before we start, please leave a like and subscribe and leave a comment. So with most of my renders, I start out just messing around, trying some ideas, and they usually don't really work. And that's something you see happen a lot with me. I do a lot of things that you don't see in the videos that just don't work out well. So yeah, keep that in mind. Next time you hit a roadblock, don't become frustrated or anything. Don't give up. Just push through and you'll end up with an amazing piece of art. So the first thing I always do is just add in a plane and scale it up. For this plane, I'm going to enable the cycles experimental mode and just hit subdivide and adaptive subdivision. And then I'm going to add in a water material and just setting the transmission to 1 with the IOR to 1.133 and then just the roughness down. Just duplicate this plane and make this the landscape. For the landscape, I'm just adding in a displacement. That's why we added the subdivision. Make sure that you have displacement enabled in the material settings. I'm just going to go over the materials really fast so we don't waste our time with that, but just adding in a Musgrave texture just like the last video. So the most important things start here, which is what I wanted to talk about, and that is finding your style in Blender. So for this, I'm just adding in some fog, and I'm just doing this so I can basically just manipulate the light and get in a color palette. And that's one of the most important things, is getting your colors down. Not knowing what colors you're going to use is a really big mistake that a lot of people make. They just throw in random colors and they think it will work, but it really doesn't. And then changing the color of the volume scatter allows us to manipulate the overall feel of the scene. And this allows me to make the moody render I wanted to make in the beginning. So keep that in mind the next time you're going to use volumetrics. Before we go on with the video, I just wanted to talk about our sponsor Frame. Frame is a multi-user platform with up to 300 people at once. It's a place to showcase your work, create social environments, and it's accessible right away from a link on desktop, mobile, or VR. You can bring in your own 3D models with the GLB file format. You can do this as models or just a full frame environment. You don't need a code or anything, you can just sign up with the link in the description. If you use the code Blender at checkout, you will get 25% off a plan, but otherwise it's just completely free. Go over to FRAMEVR.io to learn more. So the next thing you need to focus on in your renders, something to improve upon, is getting a story down. So this is basically just as important as the colors. And what I mean with a story is not like you have to write out an entire backstory of this scene, but just getting a central piece or just a important piece allows the viewer to kind of fill in their own story. So I added this car with no specific reason in mind. I didn't make a backstory. I haven't thought about it. I just thought it would look cool. But that allows you to like fill in the blanks, and that adds a whole different dimension to your piece. So that's something to work on in your next render. Sometimes it's also just great to start up a project and not think too much about it. Just start making. By now you probably have enough skill to make something without having to look at a tutorial. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. You can just look at tutorials. But for this video, I'm just going to be talking about some intermediate users. So I'd say just start and make something. It might not work out like you wanted, but it does add to your experience. If you're having trouble trying to find something to make, I suggest just copying a piece of art or just an environment you saw on the internet. With pieces like this, I just got inspired by Stash's new video about water and then just some different types of media. So don't be scared to just like copy those. All the great artists copy from another and take inspiration from like media and video games and stuff like that. Don't be discouraged and use other people's art as inspiration. Even my art, I would be flattered if you use my art as inspiration. Improving as an artist is a really slow process that is really hard to see in real time. But believe me, if you just look at my old pieces and like my first ever render, you can see a lot of improvements. So I recommend saving every single render you make, even if it's just like a test render. so you can look at it later in life and just know how far you've come. Something that I really recommend you doing is recycling your old materials and models you've made in Blender files. Just like I'm doing here, I'm just recycling the water and ground material from the previous render I did to save you some time and effort. Something I've noticed is that every time I have to do something multiple times in different scenes. So with the particle system with the trees, I mentioned in one of my previous videos that I really wanted a quick way to do that, and now I found a way to do that in the Botanic add-on. I really recommend you finding ways to take shortcuts, because just doing the same thing over and over again isn't really that challenging and exciting, and it doesn't really motivate you to create more and try some different things. So yeah, automation is key in this process of trying to become a better artist, because doing the same thing over and over again is just horrible for productivity. That's a really great way to tell you to get some add-ons. I know it's a big investment maybe for you right now. Add-ons are a big investment for a lot of people, but I promise you, if you get add-ons that you know you will use, it's an amazing investment, and it will really improve the quality of your renders and save you a lot of time. And time is money, so in some way you're saving money by spending money. The add-ons I use the most are Botanic, which is for all my nature assets like trees and bushes and rocks and grass, and then the traffic for the cars and the utility vehicles. PSA for the skies, which I did not use in this render, and the last one, Camera Shakeify, if I am going to make animations to add some realistic camera shake, and A&T landscapes, which is pre-installed with Blender, and I sometimes use that to make landscapes. If you have some recommendations for add-ons I should be using, please leave them in the comments, but I do highly recommend you at least pick up Botanic if you're into 3D environments, because I know that helped me a lot with the trees. If you're into that sort of stuff, I would recommend Botanic, and then the rest you can just look at yourself if you want that.